Trump was asked after he won, I think before he won the 2024 elections, he went to the New York Economic Club, and they asked him how does he feel about sanctions on Russia. This is leading up to his victory in 2024 when he was invited to speak at the New York Economic Club. So he said, "Oh, sanctions, you have to use it sparingly because it's so powerful. It's so powerful that you have to use it sparingly." And then in that same speech, he mentioned that America can't afford to lose the petrodollar. That is the world reserve, the world currency, and that we can't afford to lose the petrodollar. So under Trump's second term, he's going to abandon Zelensky in order to flood Exxon Russian energy, because this is what Trump wants to do. Exxon can't control supplying Europe with energy if it's not with Russian Arctic energy. And so, because you can't use liquid gas inside of a ship's liquid gas tank ships to sell condensed gas into liquid form into Europe to then refine it into gas again, because it's too expensive, it's too cumbersome for Exxon to supply Western Europe in that type of LNG. Liquid gas, in order to put it in gas containers and ships, and then sail to Western Europe, and then to refine the gas back into gas form from liquid form. It's too cumbersome, it's too slow, and it's not enough capabilities to supply the whole of Western Europe. So what Trump wants to do in his second term is abandon Zelensky in order to raise sanctions off of Russia, and for Exxon to get Russian Arctic energy, gas, and oil to the Ukrainian pipelines to flow Exxon Russian Arctic energy into Western Europe. So Trump always wanted to undermine Angela Merkel or the German economy, to undermine the Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1, because under the Trump administration, they see that as a threat to America's petrodollar. And America wants to control, under Trump, Exxon board members want to control the flow of energy into Western Europe through Exxon joint venture deals in the Russian Arctic. Under the Trump administration, this has always been their ambition to use Ukrainian Exxon pipelines that run through Ukrainian government into Western Europe, in order for Exxon under the Trump administration to flow gas and oil from the Russian Arctic into Western Europe. So Putin has always realized that that's the Achilles heel of America's foreign affairs. And they use Trump as a putz in order to trip up American foreign affairs. They use Trump to undermine the European Union by tariffing Germany, France, because Trump thinks that Macron Paris Accord is a danger to America's petrodollar. And so Macron with the Paris Accord stands in the way of Trump's ambition of floating gasoline with the petrodollar of the greenback. So that's the reason Trump tariffs France and Macron. It's not for their French wines and their cheese. It's not for their French exotic wines and their cheese. It's not for that. Trump tariffs France because of the Paris Accord. It's like a thorn up his ass, up Trump's ass, from selling gasoline petrodollars of the world reserve currency. So Trump sees that as a threat to our economy. And Germany, part of it has to do with sabotaging their electric car industries of Mercedes-Benz and BMWs. But the bigger part is Trump always wanted to undermine Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. And with Trump and Farage, Trump started the Brexit movement, because Britain always are jealous about Germany being the economical engine of Western Europe. That's always been existing, the animosity between Britain and Germany because of their economies. Because Britain doesn't want Germany to be the engine, economical engine of Western Europe. That's been the source of economical strife between the First World War, the Second World War, due to reparations. The Second World War broke out. The First World War broke out because of the royal family and the Kaisers. Germany was bigger than Britain, their economy. So that World War, the First World War, broke out because of the assassination, the Austrian assassination of the royal families that had lines to the German Kaisers. So that broke out World War One. Then World War Two broke out because of reparations inflicted on Germany. So between Britain and France, between Britain and Germany. The reparations is what broke out World War II because of the reparations that Britain inflicted on Germany. And now, with Trump and Farage, they caused the Brexit movement because Britain doesn't want Germany to be the economical bloc engine of Western Europe. So Trump and Farage caused Brexit. And Trump has always been undermining Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1 because of the petrodollar. America wants to control the heartbeat of the dependency of fossil fuels in Western Europe, because that would influence America as a world sole superpower to leverage the European members, because they would depend on Exxon flooding Russian Arctic energy into Western Europe. That's what Trump's ambition is all about. So he wants to dominate the flow of energy into Western Europe. He wants Western Europe to be dependent on Exxon in order to prop up the gasoline dollar, or as he calls it, the world's currency. So, and Trump, if you know everything about his career, he's a snake oil con artist. Like Rockefeller's father, he's always peddling gasoline. So, this second term of Trump, he's going to abandon Zelensky totally. And he's going to extort the European members to do what he's not willing to do, Trump, because he just wants the gasoline to flow through the Ukrainian Exxon pipelines from the Russian Arctic in order to prop up Exxon supplying energy into Western Europe. So if you listen to Trump when he visited the New York Economic Club, right before I believe he won the 2024 elections, they asked him, what do you think about sanctions on Russia? And Trump said, oh, sanctions are powerful. You got to use it sparingly. You got to put them on and then take it off sparingly because it's so powerful. And we can't afford to lose our petrodollars or the world's currency. So Trump's whole initiative for settling the war in Ukraine is to abandon Zelensky totally, and the hopes that he will get in Putin's graces and would allow Exxon back into the Russian Arctic to flood Exxon Russian Arctic through Ukraine in order to corner the market of Western Europe with the American petrodollar. So Trump has always been undermining Germany's economy. You haven't noticed that Germany's economy is collapsing again because of the WTO, the IMF, Moody's. They're causing the German economy to collapse after the CIA blew up Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1. Or one of those pipelines. If I believe it was one or both of them got destroyed by the CIA. But this is what Trump is plotting to do in his second term in office, is to allow Exxon to raise sanctions off of Putin, to abandon Zelensky, and to force Exxon to flood through Ukraine pipelines, because that's what Exxon wants under Trump. Trump is what you call a presidential oligarch, a puppet, a pawn in Exxon board members' interests. Trump is their flunky. He's always been their flunky, their putz, their dim-witted sap, snake oil peddler, like Rockefeller's father, with remedies of a con-arting, grifter of a president that he is. So now he's going to put Kash Patel to bypass the FBI background checks in order to put Kash Patel as director to vet out all the intels that implicated Trump in his first term in the Russian Arctic for the love of Exxon. Trump doesn't want that news to come out to the rest of the world, especially his supporters, that he always been in the bed of Putin for the love of Exxon. So he's afraid to death that his supporters would tear him from limb to smithereens. So he wants to put Kash Patel as director. He wants to bypass the FBI background checks on Kash Patel in order to put Kash Patel in there to burn all the skiffs and to redact and burn all the reports on Trump being implicated with Exxon and Rex Tillerson in the Russian Arctic during his first term, and the reason why he vetted out the Robert Mueller report. So if anything, Trump is the deep state. He's doing what Nixon never did, or he didn't have balls enough to do. Trump is Nixon 2.0, because Nixon only got the plumbers to hack into the DNC headquarters to steal a couple of disk files on the Democratic Party. But Trump is the deep state. He vets out the CIA, the FBI, the Justice Department, just to keep his grifting going. He has no shame in his game. So this is going to be his second term. And if you notice, Germany, under Chancellor Scholz, his economy is faltering. It's because the CIA destroyed the Nord Stream pipelines. And under Trump, the Republicans want to open up gas as normal business. Exxon wants to proceed on with business as usual with Trump in the second term. And Trump doesn't give a damn about Lazinski. He just wants to open up those pipelines in order to prop up the petrodollar. See, because that gives America leverage over the rest of the European members and the Eurozone. If America controls the bloodline of energy into Western Europe, the heartbeat, the veins, the vessels, the blood vessels of fossil fuels that Europe depends on for their survival, if that's controlled by the America's petrodollar and by America Exxon company, then America flunkies the European members and controls the Eurozone. And America can use that as leverage to get the European members plus NATO to float America's foreign affairs. So this is the dire truth of political science. I'm not making these things up. These are the actual truths. Like right now, you got part of European members that are still importing Russian gas because they don't have no other source to run for natural gas or oil. They don't have no other links with any other nation that can supply natural gas and oil. So you still have members, I believe, Hungary, Turkey, I believe, I'm not sure. You probably even have Germany still receiving Russian gas. They're trying to cut it out. But you still got some European members, NATO members, that are still supplying themselves with Russian gas. So, but Trump wants to beat everybody to the finish line as far as cornering the Western markets. He's always been like this in his first term and now in his second term. He's going to pick off where he left off. But Putin doesn't want to allow Trump to prop up the petrodollar. It's not in Russia's interest to prop up the world hegemonic currency as the world reserve hegemonic greenback petrol gasoline dollars. But Putin will always see a putz in Trump. Putin will always see imbalance in Trump's inner ego. So Putin will use this to get his way in Ukraine. He will freeze the territory battles, and then he will rebuild his army capacities, and he will conquer the whole of Ukraine. He probably will wait for a while, replenish his armies, and then he will reconquer the whole of Ukraine. But he will use Trump for it as a flunky. So Trump doesn't care. Trump just sees dollar signs as the well-reserved petrodollar. And when it comes to America's Republican Party and even the Democratic Party, You notice they don't out Trump and the Russian collusion for the love of Exxon. It's been 15 years of Trump in the political arena. Not even a Democrat cries a tear of leaking intel reports of the true Trump collusion in the Russian Arctic when Robert Mueller was investigating. They don't implicate Trump and Exxon and Rex Tillerson in the Russian Arctic under the Trump first term in office. They don't do it, the Democrats, because they believe that this is the only way they can influence Western Europe. If they're dependent on their blood supply, of their veins, of gas pipes, on Exxon energy flooding Russian energy into Western Europe, then that gives America leverage over the European members, economically and militarily wise, when it comes to America forcing NATO to do its bidding globally. Because it will be in the interest of Western Europe to survive, because they would depend on the flow of gasoline dollars for their economies to survive and not run dry. So if America corners the flow of Exxon energy into Western Europe, then America controls the European Union. Because if America can inflict tariffs on any European member or deny them energy deals, the European members will be weakened if America picks winners and losers in the European Eurozone alliance. So to strengthen leaders and nations, to blackmail European nations to do the American bidding, not only propping up the greenback as the gasoline dollar, hegemonic currency, but also muscling Europe to do America's Washington bidding when it comes to foreign affairs. So if you notice, the Democrats haven't spoke truth to words when it comes to the Trump collusion in the Russian Arctic with Exxon. And they never will. Because in Washington, they all wear togas. And this, what I like to call as an analogy, the Roman emulation of George Washington paganism on the world stage. America likes to emulate the Empire of Rome under the Washington Constitution. So America depends on the world reserve hegemonic currency. America is still dependent on the flow of gasoline. Europe is still dependent on the flow of gasoline. The rest of the world is still dependent on the flow of gasoline. So that's why the Democrats haven't spoken truth to words and are cowardice, spineless cowards as Democratic representatives, because they lay down with Trump in order to prop up this hegemonic currency and have leverage over the world. So it's not in the interest of the Democrats to pull Trump's toga off of him and see him naked for what he is. So they hide Trump's skeletons underneath the carpet. The Democratic Party, they're the biggest cowards of hypocrisy. They act like they're against the Republicans and against Trump, but in reality, they cover up for him because they lay down in bed at the end of the day for this love of a hegemonic currency. And the strength and leverage that gives them in Western Europe and in the rest of the global South regions. So that's why America, using the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, the Bank of Settlements, the World Bank, the Moody's, the SWIFT transaction systems, they control the rest of the world by enslaving them dependency on gasoline. And so the Democrats are not willing to out Trump and the truth of Trump and the fossil fuel peddler that he is for the love of Russian energy into Western Europe. They don't out him because they don't want to bring the house down. Like the Hindenburg, when they all eating luxury dinners at the Hindenburg blimp, they all think that they're bipartisanly, Democrats and Republicans are floating natural gas and they're sitting in the ambulance of aristocracy, of high society American politicians, and they're floating in the Trump Hindenburg, thinking that it is all about the petrodollar. So they're about to go up in hot air, but they're afraid of speaking the truth to words. The Democrats are spineless cowards on this topic. They've always been spineless cowards on this topic. The Democratic leaders, they all know what's going on, but they're too hypocritical to say the truth to the rest of the world. You want to know the truth? The deep state is Trump for the love of oil. Trump has always been the deep state for the love of oil. He's been the deep state. He's the one that's going to vet out the FBI, vet out the Justice Department, to destroy the archives of intel that incriminates him in the Russian Arctic. Trump is the deep state as a venomous snake oil peddler. He's going to put Kash Patel. He's going to bypass the background checks to get him nominated as the FBI director in order to destroy any archives that incriminates Trump's first term in office, leading up to the seizure of intel papers he took to Mar-a-Lago. And like Trump said in his New York Economic Club speaking event, they asked him right before he won 2024. In my opinion, he started with bots, with Elon bots that flooded Latinos and African communities with pro-Trump propaganda short videos. But Trump is going to use Kash Patel to vet out and to dismantle and to destroy any evidence that implicates Trump with Exxon throughout his first term while he was vetting out the Robert Mueller report. Anything that incriminates Trump's deep state for the love of petrodollars or Exxon interests, he's going to use Kash Patel to muscle any investigations away from him that might implicate Trump. And he's going to also vet out the Justice Department to obstruct any type of intel reaching the Justice Department or any investigations reopening up, investigating Trump's corruption in the business oil interests of Trump's lobbyists. You know, Trump invited the oil oligarchs to Mar-a-Lago to insist that they donate $1 billion to his Save America PAC, so he can pay for his $500 million fine of New York fraud case of real estate, insurance fraud, tax evasion of Letitia James. He got so scared that he was going to go bankrupt and they was going to seize and liquidate his buildings that he summons all his oil oligarchs to go to Mar-a-Lago and to donate $1 billion to his Save America PAC, so he can pay his get out of jail free cards and pay for his $500 million fine, where he was found guilty for real estate fraud, tax evasion, insurance fraud, bank fraud, and the Letitia James civil case. So Trump has always been in the pocket of American oil oligarchs. He's always been their putz, their pawn, their mark, you know. And so this is their strategy. This is Trump 2.0 strategy. And he always likes to use the excuse fake news to deflect incriminative accusations of him. He always uses the excuse. I like to use the analogy of whatever you say bounces off of me like rubber and sticks to you like glue. That's what Trump uses when he calls the media fake news, in the hopes that it will deflect from him and bounce off and stick to the Democratic Party, because he tries to make the Democratic Party looks criminal in order for him to escape. But like I said, the Democratic Party doesn't want to panic the petrodollar or the world reserve currency, so they turn a blind eye to this corruption. They know exactly what Trump is all about, but they're in bed with Trump because it's in America's interest, national security interest, to not out Trump when it comes to the petro grifting that he is and the deals that he do. The Democrats go along for the ride. So it reminds me of an analogy bipartisanly of the Democratic Party politicians and the Republican politicians floating in the Trump-Hindenburg blimp. And they all whining and dining like it's some type of banquet at Mar-a-Lago. And they all look as parasite politicians bipartisanly. They're eating in this blimp of Trump-Hindenburg, floating on freaking fracking hot air gas of Trump, and not knowing that that it's going to erupt into flames and come burning down from the skies as far as their love for petrodollars, or what they call America gasoline dollars, that controls the whole world. To tell you the truth, even Europe is flunkied by America's interest with the petrodollar. Western Europe is flunkied and muscled as the Eurozone members that depend on fossil fuels from Exxon. They will all be flunkied individually with Moody's, the Bank of Settlements, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the SWIFT system, that America controls all of that. Through Bretton Woods, ever since Bretton Woods, America controls this petrodollar scheme. I like to use the analogy, if you turn a dollar around, it's a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme. Look at that pyramid, and the all-seeing eye of the Treasury Department, as an analogy, where all roads lead back to Rome, or may I say the Ponzi scheme of the petrodollar, the world reserve currency, is all a Ponzi scheme, if you ask me. And so I like to use certain analogies to explain the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me goodness. So, like I said, the Democrats and the Republicans, they all know the truth of Trump. His grifting for the love of oil. And the American news outlets. You think the liberal news don't know what Trump was doing with Rex Tillerson in the Russian Arctic? You think MSNBC, CNN, PBS, all of them, the left-wing news, they all know what Trump is up to during his first term and his second term for the love of oil. But they don't want to lose their charter, because then the FCC will say, oh, you're endangering national security interests by reporting this scandalous charges. And you can be fined steeply by the national security agencies of America. So CNN, MSNBC, they coward too. And they don't report on the true instincts that they know what's going on with Trump and grifting for the love of Exxon in the Russian Arctic. They don't report about it. You don't see this in CNN, left-wing news, MSNBC, no. And they all know the truth as reporters, but they're too coward for their commercial cable television networks not to be fined or be revoked from the FCC to be broadcast as cable television news. So even the left-wing news are cowards, and they're anchors. So this is all basically the deep state of America. And they hate me because I speak truth to words. So they hate me. Bipartisanly, the government hates me because I speak truth to words. And they don't want to be seen naked on the world stage for the love of petrodollars. Bipartisanly, this country's polluted as a capitalist society, run amok on Capitol Hill, like they all wearing togas in a Roman Empire. When they passed the laws of the Senate, or may I say the laws of Washington, D.C., they got a pagan monument dedicated to Washington. But the truth will come out, because the historians are not stupid. Historians and political science majors, they really know what the truth behind Trump, and they know the truth behind America. So historians will know that what I'm saying is founded in actual reality. And what the government is lying about is because they're peddling petrodollars throughout the world as a world reserve currency. And through it, they control this Ponzi scheme of a world hegemonic economic world order, a world hegemonic currency. And so it's not in the interest for bipartisanly for the government to talk truth to words. As lying hypocrites bipartisanly, they hide like demons behind closed doors and consider America a capitalist, democratic society run amok, if you tell me, and you ask me for my opinion. That's how I view Capitol Hill. But Europe, the German Scholz, Chancellor of Germany, the economy is faltering. Don't you think that's in America's foreign interest to weaken y'all from Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2? Because America doesn't want Germany to control the energy supply into Western Europe. That will weaken America's foreign interest as floating the Eurozone through the American Stock Exchange of Wall Street. And mainly the petrodollar, the greenback, the world reserve currency that controls the gasoline supplies of the world. And too recent, because the BRIC members started decoupling, including the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and OPEC are starting to decouple from the petrodollar. And Trump wants to tariff the global south 100% of any nation that dare weans or contradict the gasoline dollar, or may I say the mighty greenback dollar. As an analogy, turn that dollar bill backwards and see the Ponzi scheme pyramid. The Ponzi scheme, the pyramid scheme of the American Treasury Department through the petrodollars of the world, or may I say the world reserve currency. See, historians would judge me for being honest and truthworthy on this topic, explaining it and saying it how it is, not how politicians in America pretend to not be, or pretend not to be, to explain or talk on these topics, because it's not politically correct to speak truth to words on these matters in Washington. So bipartisan, behind closed doors, these parasites, bipartisanly, they leech off the world like parasites for the love of petrodollars, American greenbacks. As an analogy, just turn that dollar bill backwards and see the pyramid scheme of the all-seeing eye of the Treasury Department. That through Bretton Woods, ever since Roosevelt pegged the dollar to the oil of the House of Saud and flunkied the OPEC members to this very day, they try to muscle the House of Saud to keep the petrodollars flowing. This has been all a Ponzi scheme of America's ambition, a pyramid scheme of the mighty dollar on a world stage. So you see one pyramid on the side of the dollar, to the left of the dollar, you see one pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme of the all-seeing eye, right? That's an analogy. Now on the other side, on the right-hand side, what do you see? The presidential emblem of olive, the eagle, the bald eagle with an olive branch and sparrows. And what is that? Well, that's Trump saying to the global south, if any one of y'all developing third world nations, any one of y'all in the global south, if y'all dare to decouple from the American gasoline dollar, I will tariff y'all 100%. That means trickle-down economics from this Moody's, International Monetary Fund, the SWIFT system, the World Bank, the Bank of Settlements. That's all controlled by America Ponzi schemings after Bretton Woods, right when Roosevelt pegged the dollar to gasoline in the House of Saud. And to this very day, they muscle the House of Saud to keep the rest of OPEC warmongered and to keep the House of Saud as the chairman ruling on behalf of the White House over that organization of OPEC. And now you got this venomous snake oil con artist, Trump. And bipartisanly, you won't hear the Democrats talk about this because they're afraid. Like leech parasites, they're part of it. They're not a part of the solution. They are part of the problem. Right as equally culpable with the Republican Party on this particular petro scheme of America's mighty dollar. So, but Trump is more shameless in his actions. He's more vulgar. So he's crippling Germany's economy, or at least America's Bretton Woods system of IMF, the World Bank, the Bank of Settlements, the SWIFT system, Moody's. Now they're crippling Germany's economy in order to bankrupt Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1 and bypass it through Exxon Ukrainian pipelines when Trump abandons Zelensky for the love of Exxon, only to control Western Europe like puppets. Washington, by floating the energy dependency of Western Europe, like that America greenback can float the Eurozone, and America can be like the Hindenburg, the Trump Hindenburg. Bipartisanly, the Democrats, along with the Republicans, try to live with freaking, fracking, blimping gas of Trump and the lumps of luxury as America world sole superpower. Floating hot air. Like they're eating out at a Mar-a-Lago banquet, but it's up there in the Hindenburg, Trump Hindenburg, the lump of luxury. While Western Europe is flunkied by Washington, because if Western Europe depends on Exxon, after Trump abandons Zelensky for the love of oil, in this second war of Putin invading Ukraine, then the Eurozone, and Trump will tariff and use Brexit as leverage to tariff France and Germany. Because he doesn't want the Paris Accords of France to stand in his way. He doesn't want Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1 to stand in his way. And Washington wants to control the float of the Eurozone. That will depend on the petrodollar. So they can keep an iron grip on the Eurozone. Washington through the mighty dollar. And again, I'll use the dollar as an analogy. Turn it on its back, flip Washington around. Flip George Washington around on the dollar bill. And as an analogy, this is America's petrodollars. Or may I say a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme of the Treasury Department. Bipartisanly, this has been America's foreign affairs for decades, dating back since Bretton Woods and Roosevelt. And they haven't changed their tunes in Washington. Trust me, I'm the one that outed Trump in the Exxon Russian Arctic. And the Democrats didn't peep a word to the American people. Neither did the left-wing news. Because at the end of the day, this is not proper for the Democrats to speak truth to words. Because they don't want to lose their position as a world superpower, let alone the world reserve currency. So they all wear togas. And this emulation of Washington pagan Roman, that all roads of gasoline leads back to this mighty dollar when it comes to the global dependency on gasoline. So you have OPEC that's decoupling slowly but surely, because the OPEC members have been warmongered ever since the organization came to being. Ever since OPEC was chartered by member states, America's Pentagon has been invading and toppling OPEC nations. Look at Syria. They started a civil war again against Assad in order to control the Syrian oils wells. America and Turkey has been funding rebellions against Assad in this recent, right after, what's today's date? Today is November, what is it? Today is November 3rd, 2024. And America and Turkey is funding a second civil war with Assad to overthrow Assad, for America can put a puppet in charge of Syria's oil wells. So OPEC has been always warmongered by the Pentagon. The only country that hasn't been warmongered in OPEC has been the House of Saud, because they use them as puppets. They flunky them as chairman of the organization, while they warmonger and topple the rest of OPEC members. So now you got the OPEC organization about to kick out the House of Saud from the organization of OPEC if they don't decouple from this hegemonic, demonic petrodollar. OPEC nations are being tired of warmongered and genocide and overthrown by the Pentagon. But now the House of Saud, what's today's date? I said today is November the 3rd, 2024. When I made this video, this tutorial. And as we speak, the House of Assad from Syria, America is propping up a resurgence in a civil war in Syria in order to overthrow Assad, to kick Russia out of the Navy base that Russia has in Syria, and to control the oil wells of Syria. So America has always been warmongering the OPEC members. Every bit of them, every member of OPEC has been toppled, overthrown, invaded by the CIA and the Pentagon in America's foreign affairs. The only one that's been flunkied around like a putz has been the House of Saud, to do the bidding of Washington as the CEO of OPEC. But the rest of OPEC members are about to throw out the House of Saud if they don't decouple from the petrodollar, the American greenback, as a demonic hedge currency. So now America is panicking with Trump. Not only because OPEC wants to decouple from the petrodollar, but now the global south wants to decouple. And now Trump is tariffing the world, the third world, with 100% tariffs if they dare decouple from the world reserve gasoline dollars or the petrodollar. So you start to see this American experiment gone awry on the world stage. You start to see the ruining of the Washington pagan Roman Empire, or the emulation of it, in the Senate, bipartisanly, right? Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, y'all been the longest toga-wearing fucks, excuse me for using curse words, but y'all been in there lifelong senators, right? Wearing your cheap three-piece suits, or may I say togas. But this is America, how America runs the world. And so people like me are unsung heroes, because I say it the way it is, not how they pretend to be. You judge politicians by their actions, not their words. The words are smokes and mirrors. Politicians' words are smoke and mirrors. Hyperboles of smoke and mirrors. That's all politicians are with their words. It's smokes and mirrors with hyperboles. So you never judge a politician for their words. You always judge them for their actions. Action speaks louder than words when it comes to political science. So, this is the truth of the deep state of Washington and how deep this petrodollar rules over the world as a hegemonic currency of gasoline. And so the world is becoming tired of it. OPEC is going to force out the House of Saud in that organization of OPEC if the House of Saud doesn't decouple from the petrodollar. Because they realize that every nation, every member of OPEC has been overthrown, subverted, invaded by the Pentagon. And so OPEC members are tired of it. And they're giving the ultimatum to the House of Saud that if they don't decouple from the petrodollar, the American greenback, that they will force the House of Saud and kick the House of Saud out of OPEC plus one. So the Crown Prince has no choice but to decouple. And now, the Pentagon with Turkey are invading Syria for the second time, propping up a civil war in the hopes that America can control the Syrian oil wells. Remember, Trump said, take the oil of Syria? So, bipartisanly, America has been always, when all the gasoline petrodollars of the world when all streets lead back to Rome, or may I say this Senate of American imperialism of the gasoline world reserve hegemonic petrodollar, you can tell bipartisanly that these people laid down together as politicians for the love of the mighty empire. So it's people like me that they want to use that as an scapegoat. It's people like me that they want to ride like I'm on my back, like I'm a goat, and they're the fox, and they're trying to ride me like I'm a goat, and use me as an excuse, a poster boy, to say, oh, Ramiro's part of the deep state. But in reality, it's because I shine the light on their corruption, their true togas. I ripped it away from them. And the world sees them naked for who they are, with their pagan Washington monument of an emulated Roman gone empire and the American Senate of Washington, D.C. Bipartisanly, I show the world what America is, for what it is, not for what it pretends to be. So when it comes to studying political science, when it comes to studying history, political history or military history, when it comes to studying diplomat studies, how to be a diplomat, see, politicians, you never take them for their words, because it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Their words of every politicians is a bunch of house of cards, like Netflix series type of house of cards. Their inner voice is their real motives. The outer voice is a bunch of smokes and mirrors, hyperboles of smoke and mirrors. So you never judge a politician for their words. Always judge them for their actions. Action speaks louder than words.